वेलकम बैक। आजकल हमारे फीड में चल रहा है शक्तिमान। शक्तिमान की मैंने एक रिसेंटली वीडियो देखी, मतलब मुकेश खन्ना जी, हमारे बूमर अन्ना जी, उनकी रिसेंटली एक वीडियो देखी मैंने ट्राइड एंड रिफ्यूज प्रोडक्शन के चैनल पे, जैमी भाई के चैनल पे। एंड आई जस्ट वांटेड टू लाइक टॉक अबाउट, आई गॉट एन एसेंस अबाउट हाउ लाइक ही वॉज फ्रस्ट्रेटेड विद द फैक्ट दैट हमारे मुकेश अन्ना जी इज़ नॉट up to the generation. Basically, he's still trying to replicate what he used to be at a point of time where he was famous, where he was relevant. But at the Shaktiman thing, when it started, I was minus 1 year old and I'm 26 now, so that's a very 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 long time ago. So बस वही वाली चीज़ है कि I can see the frustration Jammy has with this entire situation. And also I just wanted to talk about like how people get out of touch after a while, after an age. तो एक बार वीडियो देख लेते, then I'll discuss.
I have to tell you that my biggest fear as a content creator is becoming this old, senile, out of touch, and negative shell of a man. And for the scariest, for me to never notice such a change in me. As more time passes, more people get disinterested in the content when all you project is negativity. That, coupled with clear signs of being out of touch, is a recipe for disaster in a career that is anchored around creating a bond among strangers. I know the world mostly sucks around us and we are naturally going to become pessimists, but when it reaches a point of no return, is where I really get concerned. And this is where I feel Mukesh Khanna is with his endless rants regarding the IP of Shaktiman and what it means to play the superhero in front of camera. You remember when Sony had announced that it was going to create a Shaktiman film? The level of interest and excitement it garnered, the genuine hype among film fans when rumors were spreading that Ranveer Singh and Basil will collaborate on the same. Imagine knowing very well about the hype surrounding the title and the careful anticipation with which the audience wants to see this version of the superhero on the big screen. And you all over it. All, mind you, all because your inflated ego cannot pass on the baton. Shaktiman was celebrated on TV in its heyday for the novelty of seeing an Indian superhero on screen. We had very little of them back in the day. And what happens in an atmosphere that is heavily relying on existing IPs and the factor of nostalgia is that you hold onto it for dear life. If Mukesh Khanna had some foresight, he would make sure to get a huge piece of the pie in the theatrical run of the film, while allowing the likes, presumably, of Sony and someone like Basil to take creative control. But what happens when you believe your own hype, where you think the impact of a figure is much larger than it actually is that the cardinal sin becomes a part of your personality. And that, my friends, is delusion. You, at the age of 66, still start believing that you can pull off the superhero role. You hold a press conference while barely fitting into the costume. You badmouth everyone in the industry, claiming that they are not worthy enough to play the superhero. In the process, burning all the creative bridges that could have made this superhero figure not only celebrated among millennials, but the Gen Z who are not well versed with how the show was celebrated on cable television. Seeing the press conference as Mukesh Khanna is stuck in his ways reminded me of uncles in family gatherings who refuse to listen in a conversation. You know, people who don't yes and a conversation but like the sound of their own voice. So they just go on tangents, a clear sign of narcissism where there is no sense of introspection, evolution, and all these dated individuals speak about is hamare zamane mein. Always notice actors of the generation who reached their peak in the 90s only boast about their time, referencing it as the golden era of cinema, while clearly the content at the time was also not just knockouts year in and year out, but had its fair share of, I would actually say, argue most featured in embarrassing content. Mukesh Khanna, in my opinion, is in the middle of self destruction regarding the popular IP of Shaktiman, something for which he could have made bank had he just set aside his ego.
एग्जैक्टली। सो बिफोर मूविंग फॉरवर्ड इन दिस वीडियो, जस्ट मेरे को एक बार बताना कि ये स्किबिडी का मतलब क्या होता है, ठीक है? क्योंकि मुझे नहीं पता एंड आई एम श्योर मेरे ऊपर वाले जनरेशन्स को तो बिल्कुल भी नहीं पता होगा। बट ये चीज़ मेरे हिसाब से मेरे नीचे वाले जनरेशन्स को पता है, ये जो भी जेन अल्फ़ा वगैरह जो भी ये लोग हैं। इनका नया स्लैंग, नया ट्रेंड, नया जो भी आजकल जो भी चल रहा है, बेसिकली ब्रेन रॉट कंटेंट जो भी आजकल चल रहा है इंटरनेट पे, वो मुझे समझ नहीं आता, ना ही मैं समझना चाहता हूँ, बिकॉज इट cringes me out and I do not like it. But I also need to understand, as a person from this generation who does not relate to the generation after me, that their generation is doing something that we will not understand, and the generation after them will do something that they will not understand. In the same context, the generation above us have never been open to like exploring the ideas of this generation, have never been open to like streaming their own self in other ways, such as देखो अभी शक्तिमान का मैं सम मुकेश खन्ना, आई विल नॉट एड्रेस शक्तिमान एनी मोर, क्योंकि शक्तिमान इज नॉट इन्वॉल्व इन दिस एंटायर कॉन्वर्सेशन. इट्स जस्ट अबाउट मुकेश खन्ना एंड हिज रिजिडनेस. He has done a few things, a few roles here and there, and Shaktiman is one of them. And after that, he has started a YouTube channel, which is very good for him because he was not getting television space after a while. So he has diversified to YouTube, but he still does not understand that YouTube में घुसने का मतलब ये नहीं होता that now you are open to saying or doing whatever you want because you are in a platform that is of this generation. You need to adapt to this generation as well, and you need to adapt to the demands and needs of this generation as well. तो जब मुकेश खन्ना is very rigid towards the fact that मैं ही शक्तिमान हूँ, मेरा ही आईपी है, मैं ही हूँ जो हूँ, मैं ही हूँ इसका करता धरता, मेरे से ऊपर शक्तिमान नहीं है, मैं शक्तिमान से ऊपर हूँ, शक्तिमान का टाइटल मेरे लिए सब कुछ है, पद्मश्री गया भाड़ में, शक्तिमान इज अबव एवरीथिंग एल्स. यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट पीपल अराउंड यू डू नॉट थिंक दैट वे. People around you do not respect you, and therefore you are ruining the legacy of Shaktiman, जिसमें अगर लोगों को हल्का सा भी इंटरेस्ट होता, क्योंकि in this entire review community there was actually a hype with Shaktiman when the trailer teaser dropped from the Sony's side, and people were excited, people wanted to see कि क्या होता है. But now after this entire music video, तुम्हारा मीडिया अपीयरेंस, ये वो फलाना गाना, फिटिंग इनटू द सूट ऑफ शक्तिमान एंड playing quiz with children, it has gotten a little like distasteful. And this happens when you do not wish to adapt, when you do not cater to the mass demand as a public figure. So if you are a public figure and you have an audience base, you have the responsibility as well to meet the need of the audience base. It's not just about you owning Shaktiman or you being Shaktiman up until now. It's time to move on. It's time to like pass on the title to the next generation. However, this entire thing of elderly people not understanding what this generation wants has been passed down from generation to generation, and that is what we call generation gap. My uncle would not understand the terms, the psyche, the way we talk. That's normal in our generation, and we will not understand what the people after us say or discuss, or the trends that they have, or the platforms that they are uh, approaching. YouTube is not going to be the end all. There was radio, there was television, now there's YouTube, and after this it will be something else. बीच में TikTok वगैरह भी, रील्स वगैरह भी हुआ था शुरू, but we haven't transitioned completely because those sites have not been as relevant as YouTube. They have tried, but they have failed. But इसके आगे भी there will be change. So people like us as well who are in the YouTube community will also have to adapt to them. अगर मैं यहाँ पे या फिर जैमी यहाँ पे या फिर बाकी लोग यहाँ पे आके बैठ के कहेंगे कि नहीं, हमारे टाइम पे तो, हमारे जनरेशन में तो YouTube ही बेस्ट हुआ करता था, YouTube के अलावा तो कुछ नहीं हुआ करता था, and if they do not meet the general audience halfway by moving to a better platform which is of that generation, then we will be the ones losing in that conversation. तो adapting is very important, but it's also understandable that the uncles of the previous generation do not wish to adapt because they do not understand what it is. हम आपके नानी या दादाजी इनको शायद नहीं चलाना आता हो आज तक भी स्मार्टफोन, हमारे माओ को शायद सेटिंग वगैरह चेंज करना ना आता हो, एंड इट्स नॉर्मल, इट्स फाइन. We have been the ones raised on internet, we have been the ones raised on change for the most part, and we have changed phenomenally and very fast, very rapidly. So we are somewhat still privy to the new trends, but even we do not understand terms like skibidi. So just all the best to Mukesh Khanna. I hope he opens up his mind. I hope he stops being so rigid and so like detrimental with his. I do not know what detrimental means. बस मेरे दिमाग में आ गया ये शब्द. With his IP of Shaktimaan, and I hope we get to see a proper Shaktimaan movie and we forget about these things, so that at least the legacy of Shaktimaan can carry forward. That's about it in this video. अगले वीडियो में मिलता है.